that's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive, kept our enemies close, wondered why we don't thrive, while we're grasping at ghosts, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contracts tossed and they're gone with the tide. The heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you right. But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip, till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips. And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes, because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know it's exanimate. Cause it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment.
Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know, more it's what you can hide. Like we're chained to the floor, they're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards. They won't let you go, set you free, or send you home. Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go, set you free, send you home.
I was close enough to smell the fire. Jesus took the wheel and then he kicked me off the ride. I was busy shouting at myself from in the crowd, about to throw down and drag myself outside. I had to give myself the business. When I show myself forgiveness, it goes right between the eyes. Was looking past my shoulder, never focused on the prize. I stalked myself through burning sand the better part of 40 nights. I found myself staring in the mirror, yelling, go into the light. Cause I was in the rear view, staring at the highway, horrified. I was in the road ahead, arms wide, ready to be mummified. Gonna be the fella yelling how he's sick of always betting on his life. I'll also be the guy that brought the dice. Half a dozen chambers and I keep an empty 5. Only needed one to break the ice. Only needed one to clear my mind. Only needed one to stop time.
Wait, please say you know. What you need is what you owed, and that won't let you go. Set you free, send you home.
That brought the dice.
Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a washing student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. They're safetied out of hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would have made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us. Spoken like a terminally unserious person who equates our cries for rights to mixed up orders from a server. It paints a privileged picture of what you would label urgent if the worst thing you've experienced in life has been the time your waiter accidentally brought a tray of gold flake scallop when you clearly ordered gold flake urgent. And now you're storming out the restaurant and hopping in a Tesla. You got 80 pounds of Tony Fauci merchant.
Rewind to chains won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Best to place your bets on weaponizing the identity of every limp progressive claiming grassroots integrity. Policy is a slippery slope for all of its complexity, so flex your brave resistance with this Ilhan Omar NFT. Numbered one of 723. Each depicts her valiantly championing a bill before she lays it at a donor's feet. And she can throw her hands up in the air with AOC and say if only Nina Turner could have voted present too, that's why we need another seat. We need some more progressives we elect to only tweet, who live to serve Humana and their label of elective slapped on every patient's gravest needs. And every station plays the theme that medical professionals agree on the effectiveness and safety of injections authorized for this emergency. And in purely unrelated news, the profits of the ones who manufacture vaccines just increased by nearly 36 billion with a fucking B. Sometimes it feels like we're the only ones that see. Sometimes it feels like all of us are lost at sea. And every time we think we see an island on the tip of the horizon, it turns out to be another measure making sure we're kept within the watchful eye of murderous authority. And so I guess my grift is crying for the future they denied us, where the people who would buy us are a mockable minority. And we are more than genomes under warranty. And we are more than serfs in constant quarantine. If I had a single breath left, I'd let the chorus scream. I'd announce our leaders claiming none for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me. None for all and more for me.
Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride. Rewind to a chance won't make you wait in such a long line. Life's not just a way to waste your free time. Air that's fit to breathe is not a free ride. Free ride.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. What's up? It's Indy. This is INN one-on-one, but I'm starting a few minutes early because I don't have a guest yet. I'm assuming and guessing that she'll be here in a few minutes. We've got kid situation like usual. So hi, everyone. Welcome. This is going to be an AMA with Dissent in Bloom. This is going to be something a little different. I'm not used to doing something like this. But I'm going to put chats up on screen and have everyone in chat that is at YouTube or at Rumble able to ask questions. And again, I'll be able to put them up on screen and then she'll be able to answer them. And I figure, until she gets here, well, I've been doing this a while and I'm sure everybody's got a couple of questions for me possibly. And I'll do the best I can to answer them, or I'll just say I don't want to answer that. But I'm a pretty open book, so if anybody has any questions for me about stuff, I'm certainly open to do that while we're waiting for our guest to arrive. I've got everything set up and waiting, and the audio is turned off, so when she gets here, I can turn that on, bring her in properly. But in the meantime. Yeah, welcome everyone. So again, this is a one-on-one. This is an AMA. So if you have any specific questions for me, first of all, I'm open right now. Hit me, man, and hit me, ladies. And what do you need? Okay. The number one story that shook me to my core, Sean. So are we talking about like ever, or are we talking about this year? I mean, look, you know, the stuff that's happening in Gaza and watching what Israel has done to Gaza has certainly been a theme. What they did to Julian Assange shook me to my core, for sure. And it's still, you know, press freedom and the ability to publish and the persecution of people who do publish and try to get it right and try to expose corruption are some of the things. One of my triggering moments was when Bernie Sanders got knifed in 2020, when he basically gave up after Super Tuesday. They decided that, you know, they were going to fearmonger everyone into voting for Joe Biden. And I watched the media, you know, an entire media circus descend on that guy from 10 days of expecting he was going to be the nominee to there was no chance he was ever going to be the nominee. And they just kind of pulled the rug out from under him and all the supporters that that truly believed in what he was doing. And I think that it changed the way the country was going to go, for sure. I also think that we were deluding ourselves and that they were never going to allow him to rise. And like Angel says, yes, Bernie allowed himself to be knifed, which is one of the reasons why they chose him as one of the people potentially to elevate over time, because in the end, he wasn't going to truly challenge the system, and they knew that. That's one I'm certainly not going to answer, Anthony, which is my name and number and address. I'm certainly not going to answer that one. Make sure you like and subscribe. Please do that. Yes, hit the thumbs up and share the thing. This year, well, seeing the way that they have basically destroyed what people perceived as the ability to exist in this country as an immigrant, legally and or illegally, has completely been turned on its head. And it scares the crap out of me. And hi, we have a guest. I turned the stream on early and I'm talking to everyone, and I'll bring you in when you're ready. So no worries. I'm just answering. How much can I lift, Bad Wolf? That's a good question. Well, my kids are about 50 pounds. I could still lift them. I don't like bench or do the weights like that, so I can't really tell you, but enough to do what I need to do. All right, let's make that big, fix that, and whenever you're ready, you can turn your thing on and we can go. Go ahead, take your time. No, they can't hear you. I've got you off. You're good. Green to the orange tie. Well, you know, it's funny because I set myself up, Golden Monarch, with a thing that allows me to, and hang on, let me just share my thing here with our friend so that she can see what you see. Good. Oh no, that's not good. Okay, so if I go here and I go here, blam, now she can see me. Perfect, and see what I see. Excellent. All right. See, we're doing this live without a net. All right. So if I want to switch ties, I actually have a button that allows me to switch ties on the fly. So I can go to a red tie or an orange tie, or I can go back to the green tie. And I also have a gold tie, a yellow tie that kind of matches the font in the Indie News Now website. Go to indienewsnow.com, by the way, if you haven't yet. That's killer. And there's tons of different news sites to catch over there. And we aggregate stuff like antiwar.com and commondreams.com and a bunch of independent, ad-free, user-funded sites. All right. Okay. So everybody's getting dinner. Where's the dry cleaning receipt for Fred's cape? That's a good question. He hasn't furnished it to me, so I don't know. Check your pockets. I think that's a good idea. There was a problem with the cleaners. Appears they used garlic. See, Sean answered your question for you. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, what do we need to do? Colorado People's News. What do we need to do to tear down the power structure that creates the crimes, keeping the 1% in place? Well, to me, the biggest thing is that hurts them is we hurt their wallets. That is a long-term slow slog. It's a BDS kind of method for sure. There is also the opt-out of the system where they can't even form a quorum. So we can do that. There is, of course, there's the electoral solution locally. Until we get a Citizens United ruling, and that might be the other thing to do, is to organize for a constitutional amendment. But who's going to pass that constitutional amendment? We're going to have to then get a convention of states specifically around that issue. And there are other issues, I think. Well, maybe it's term limits. Maybe it's Citizens United. All right. But those are two issues, I think, within Congress that could really make a big difference in shaping how our laws are written. How do we deal with corporate influence is really the big question. And getting corporate money and private funded money that's funneled through charitable corporations and all kinds of foundations and bundled through the major parties themselves, they're all a problem. The private organization of the Democratic National Committee. And then we can get into the stuff that our friend Dissent in Bloom has been working on, which is the machines and the entire process itself of elections. We need to tear all of that down and really start over intelligently without allowing the oligarchs and technocrats to decide how it's going to be structured and built. How we do that is up to a lot of people, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world to do that. But it's certainly, again, Golden Monarch, not going to be Michael Saylor. No, and it's not me, a.k.a. Michael Saylor, with the orange tie. I'm not going to the moon. I'm not all about the Bitcoin. It's one of the reasons why I don't wear the orange tie, actually. And I don't, even though that is Substack orange, and I am all about the Substack, and I probably should do the tech tips in orange. But, yeah. All right. So there we go. So Dissent in Blue. Oh, perfect. Well, Sean has a question for the both of us, and our guest is ready. So I'm going to switch over. And first of all, let me bring her audio in so you can hear her. That would help. And now we are going to welcome in my friend and guest, Dissent in Bloom. Hello. Okay. Oh, that's something we need to fix, though. Oh, because it has my camera. Oh, whatever. You can see
every time we do this.
It's okay. You can see that little thing in the corner, but I don't care. All right. So the question from Sean again is one that we talk about quite a bit. How do we balance life and studying these stories? I'll let you start with that one because you just started doing this.
Despite, no. In all honesty, I think it's just wanting to make things better, wanting to make things a better place, right? Like, yeah, we're all busy. We all have our lives, but if we're all so busy that we can't realize what's going on around us, how's that going to work out for anyone?
Yeah, I mean, and we have families, and we have work, and we have real life and real friends, and quote unquote, and we got friends online. How do I balance? I don't balance. I'm sucked into this all day long, and everybody kind of sees it. And I manage life kind of around staying informed and staying connected to the community that I found in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I didn't know anyone, and I didn't really watch live streams before pandemic. And it's really kind of changed how I interact with people. It's changed how I look at everybody through a political lens. And unfortunately, I don't really connect with very many people locally. And having kids, you're kind of stuck dealing with the parents of the kids that your kids are friends with. And there's not, and that's kind of fleeting and transitory. And I don't have very many long-term friends from like childhood, teens, and 20s that, that kind of tends to fade away over time too. As you have it takes a lot more work to maintain those friendships. I think pandemic hurt some of that too. And not politically, just distance and out of sight, out of mind kind of stuff. So your long distance friends from high school or whatever, like I don't have nearly the kind of connection that I did even before 2020 with a lot of them. And that had started to fade also once you got married and all had kids. And schedules are a lot more difficult to align just to get a day to get both families together where nobody's got events and all this other. So managing all of that is a balance. And I luckily have a very, my wife is understanding, I'll say that, and tolerant of my obsessive need to know and to stay connected. And my kids, they see me doing this and they see why I'm doing this. They see, I don't really talk to them about the news. I try to keep them as sheltered as possible. They're still relatively young. They're school age, but they don't really get very much, kind of current event stuff at school. So I tend to not, whatever kind of seeps through. And if they have questions, I'll answer them as honestly as I can. But my kids know that I do this. They don't really know how hard I rage and what I rage about necessarily, because it's more grown-up stuff. They know that I curse. They know that that's funny. They love Jesse, Uncle Jesse. They call him Uncle Jesse. They love when he reads Dr. Seuss. But yeah, that's Kitty. You disappear into multiple personalities. No, that's how you do it, Elmo. Oh, did I just out Elmo? Oh no, I'm sorry. All right.
Oh no, I have that's the first thing he did on Telegram. So
nice. So Sean says, for me, it's tough. Honestly, there are some days after shows where I bury myself in a bottle. I don't do it every day, but I have a responsibility to cover it. Yes, you do. Oh, that's Angel. Sorry. I apologize. That's not Sean. Yeah, Angel, has struggled with it, and news can get to you. This shit wears on you. I've seen a lot of people burn out. It's actually something that I've talked with our friend a little bit about. Look, we've got to pace ourselves, because we're no good to anybody if we burn ourselves out. This stuff is not going anywhere, unfortunately. And we want to stay around and do this for a long time so that we can have an impact over time. And there are people that come in, make a huge impact, and burn right out. And I think of our friend Joe, Shut the Fuck Up Shitlib, who made some incredible videos and then was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. And I appreciate the contribution he made. He was fantastic. But I want to sustain. I want to be here. And one of the things about doing that is finding that balance and figuring out a way to be around your kids and be there for your kids and be there for your wife and be there as a member of your community and as a parent and still do the homework and the laundry and be there for family meals and date nights and all those things. But
getting date nights.
well,
I wish I could get. And we don't ever have dates.
we're actually getting one tomorrow night. There's some kind of town thing that the town's putting on, and we found a neighbor's kid to sit with the kids, and we're gonna go out and have some dinner and go watch some tunes, some live music. So I'm excited for that. We don't get to do that very often either. We don't have child coverage here, very much, and but work-life balance is hard, and I don't. Both of us don't do this full time for a career. You know, we still also have jobs, and we'll do this around work, at work, and I could, talk about like how Dissent, how this has impacted your job, how writing has impacted the way you view your job, how your job impacted why you wanted to write in the first place, because I'd love to have everybody hear about that.
So not everyone knows this. I'm a registered nurse, and that's a full-time job. I do that outside of this. I think he's coming down. Sorry, my kids are up. But so one of the biggest things is watching the systematic failures in healthcare was one of the reasons I wrote, but not the only one. I do have a couple articles out there about some of the issues I've just noticed as a nurse. But I think really it's just realizing, I know another thing that was really affects me is I work in a very low income area. And what that means is that our hospital is kind of similar to a lot of the rural hospitals. We get a lot of our funding from Medicaid. We do a lot of charity work. And unfortunately, our patient population has a lot of socioeconomic barriers. And stuff like that, it just kind of reaffirms my I want to help everyone belief, but I'm trying to think the best way to word this, I'm sorry. It helps me to stay in writing, because even if I'm just speaking to a couple people, right? Like, let's say I help change the narrative on something like substance abuse, or I help spread the word about like Medicaid cuts, like me putting that out there, it gets spread throughout the communities. And in doing so, I just hope that, it can make a change, and that my patients and these people that I see suffering because they can't afford medications, they don't have, transportation to their appointments, things like that. Hopefully one day that'll be solved, but that's not the only reason, but that's one of the things. And it's always so interesting to tell people at work that I write. They're like, what?
Well, you're seeing firsthand the results of a lot of the political choices that happen in this country, specifically around healthcare, around health insurance, around minimum wage. Like you said, if you're in a low income area, you're dealing with a lot of that. You're dealing with Medicaid. You're dealing with SNAP. You're dealing with a lot of the programs that Trump has been cutting. And you're also dealing with a lot of immigrants, both, like I said earlier, legal and illegal. And like I said to Sean earlier, one of the things that has shocked me was how they've treated green card holders. And that's a 2025 change. And that's one of the things that you've written about, right? Is Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, not just him, other ones. Like, there was a woman here in Ohio named Claudia. Same thing. She was a legal green card holder back in the 90s. She had gotten a shoplifting charge, and because of that, they used that as justification to remove her green card. But the issue therein was that she had actually traveled back and forth like 10 times between them. They only waited until this year to revoke her green card. And she's worked here and lived here in the community for years. She worked at a local bakery. Her husband's here. Like, her entire life uprooted for a 20-year-old misdemeanor. Doesn't make sense to me.
And we've seen that quite a bit, where they're dragging off, older people that have been here for a long time legally, but for whatever reason. And what is the reason? And that's what I've been trying to, is it just straight racism? Is it this, the narrative about, the browning of America or whatever? Like, they can't deport their way out of this, like we've kind of analyzed, right?
As we've seen with authoritarian regimes, they usually pick one vulnerable group. It's not even necessarily just racism, but it always starts with one vulnerable group. They use that to justify their actions, and once those are normalized, it comes out to the larger population.
Yeah, Bad Wolf, I miss the Constitution. Yes, we all are starting to. Again, look at what they're doing with journalists. And I covered the story on Sunday night of an American journalist from El Salvador who's been here for decades, that they've had him in ICE detention now for weeks. They picked him up at the No Kings March, and he hasn't gotten out since, even though it's been like another Kilmar Abrego Garcia, where they've told the ICE to let him out, and they're just like, nah, we're not letting him out, because they don't like what he says, and they don't like, the work that he does, and they want to keep him locked up and, physically tortured, being away from his family and in a facility treated like a criminal, even though he, again, has done nothing wrong. He hasn't been charged with anything. And it's crazy. So I wanted to share your Substack, which is where you do a lot of the writing. Okay. All your writing. Well, since then.
I do videos, but
yes, and you've made videos. So now you're doing videos too. But you just literally published an article right before we went live, and you were talking to me about this over the last couple of days. Lay out. Now, the only thing that I really got out of this, because you told me about it last night, was that there is another $500 million for Israel towards Iron Dome and a strategic defense missile system, correct?
yeah, that's one of the clauses. It's like there's like 9,000 sections in this bill. It's thousands of pages long. It took me days to go through it, but the big things, like some of it's kind of not routine because the amount of money that they're getting is grotesque, but a lot of it is very, textbook, I guess, if that makes sense. But then there's some things that stick out to me, like 500 million for Israel, 500 million for reformation of the national security. What does that mean? It doesn't say. It just says reformation of national security systems. And it's sorry, I'm actually looking at my own article. I just finished it, and now I'm sitting here completely blanking on what I wrote. Like I know my subjects. I'm just like, oh shit, which ones did I actually put in here?
Right.
Because there's so much. Like it's a very long bill. But
we got audit the Pentagon. Go ahead.
Yeah. I go into saying, like, so it gives the Pentagon, the same Pentagon who has not passed a single audit since they started auditing the Pentagon in 2018, $831.5 billion to spend. And of the $831.5 billion, at least $600 million is explicitly labeled as classified or confidential, or it's open-ended to where they can kind of use it for whatever. Me being a smartass, I said,
it's called a black budget.
Yeah. But anyway, I said, don't worry, Pentagon accountability is in good hands. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, noted military expert, sober decision maker, and man who's never once texted war plans to a journalist after 6 bourbons, fully endorses he will make sure the Pentagon passes an audit in about 4 years. The DoD affirms this by saying they are making momentum towards a clean audit. Was worried there for a second. I'm smartass. I feel like I really enjoy being a smartass in my articles.
Well, the first time they failed an audit was on September 10th, 2001, very famously. And the next day, allegedly, a plane flew into the accounting office at the Pentagon. How convenient. Oh, but they still don't have.
In 2001, I was 4 years old, so.
Well, no, it was 9/11. So that was the Pentagon story. Yeah. And there are questions even over whether a plane hit and where the parts of that plane ended up. And that's a whole other story for another day. Well, maybe it's not. Okay. So our friend Golden Monarch here has a question for us. How does the Senate Bloom feel about the U.S.'s backward priorities for crypto, non-tangent assets, and health insurance profits in general over saving real lives, offering universal health care, etc.?
I mean, universal health care should always be a priority. I'm not 100% well versed on the crypto. Now, I do read the articles, but I'm not going to pretend I'm like a crypto bro that knows what I'm talking about, because I would just look foolish. But I will say universal health care is something that I do feel should be prioritized over crypto. Universal health care so in countries, I actually wrote a paper on this in school years ago. In countries where they have universal health care, their health outcomes are better, not only because they have a greater focus on primary care, but because people don't delay care until they're at the point of their deathbed. Because it's almost like poverty puts you in a cycle, right? And that's not just with health insurance, that's in general. And I'm kind of going to go on a tangent, so bear with me. But think about it like this. When you're poor, you can't afford the quality pair of shoes. And overall, you end up spending more money over shoes over time. Like one pair could last you 6 months if it was good quality versus buying 3 pairs in 6 months. But at the time, you can only afford the cheap pair. And it's very like that with healthcare, right? Like you neglect going to your primary care, you neglect an issue, you pretend it doesn't exist for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time until the point where you're almost on your deathbed, or it's grown to such a serious condition that you're sick and you're in the hospital for a very long time. It costs to be poor, and universal healthcare would help to alleviate that part of healthcare. I actually and still a tangent, had something like that not that long ago. So I had to get 2 root canals. I don't know how I managed to do it. I didn't have a cavity. I didn't have anything open, but I had 2 infected teeth right here in the front. And I was in so much pain over the weekend. And I was going to go to an emergency dentist, but even the consultation, because they don't take insurance, consultation alone was $1,000. I said, absolutely not. I went to my dentist on Monday after having a severe infection to the point where I was starting to get delirious. 2 days later, had to spend $1,500 on a root canal. So, and that's another thing that bothers me is the fact that dental and vision aren't considered healthcare. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Right. Like, are my eyes and my mouth not like part of my body? Like,
well, and then there's all the women's stuff that's not considered part of healthcare either in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Women unfortunately suffer because a lot of times their health issues aren't taken seriously. It took me fighting, as I'm sure you guys can see, this lovely little patch on my chest. It took me fighting with several doctors, despite me being a registered nurse, despite me knowing what the hell I'm talking about, to be taken seriously. And as it turns out, I had been complaining about palpitations, heart palpitations, and shortness of breath for months. And they're like, oh, you're fat, lose weight. Great. Lost weight. I've lost almost half my body weight, and I'm still having them. Well, what do you know? A genetic test revealed that I have a genetic mutation that causes severe heart complications, and that's why I have this monitor. This is only temporary. I will be having a permanent one put in, but it took me 3 years to even get that diagnosis. So that's just in general. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. I'm raving.
No,
but
this is.
They actually asked. I can't really speak on the crypto very much. I'm not well educated on it. I do think it's stupid from what I have read, like everything that they're doing to try to favor these crypto bros. But I will say 100% on board with universal healthcare.
Well, also, Mikhail's saying, if we don't crypto harder, we'll be left behind, bros. I mean, come on. Well, of course, yes. We've been advocating for universal healthcare for 5 years. That's another one of the core issues. We came in talking about Medicare for all. We realized that there are no lawmakers that really have the appetite to push for it or do it. And there is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that is designed around for-profit healthcare that's going to fight and try to do everything to stop that from happening. How do we do all of that in the face of all of that? I don't really know, but until we actually get some people that are starting to talk about making that happen as a law, we have to fight within the system that we have. And, there are some people that say you go state by state because each state is different. Well, Trump just ended the state exchanges effectively. And a lot of people's health care is going to go sky high in about 90 days, and they don't even realize it yet. That was actually one of the stories that I was going to bring for the lightning round that I didn't get to on Sunday night. But people's, the subsidies to the Obamacare exchanges in all the blue states are about to expire, and they're not being renewed. So everybody that had care on an Obamacare exchange, their premiums are about to skyrocket. And nobody's really talked about that. So universal health care, sure. Part of the problem, though, is what happened with COVID. Do you want this government telling you that you have to take an experimental shot because Moderna or Pfizer, untested, decided that that's what's going to happen when there's been all kinds of studies about 14-year-old boys having heart arrhythmias and having to take heart tests for the first time ever after 2020. I mean, this is Captain Warp Speed here. Are we really going to trust? Look, I didn't trust the Biden administration. I don't want any of these administrations for-profit healthcare systems, universal. Look at what Luigi. It was what universal healthcare. No, what's United? United Healthcare is the number one insurance company size-wise in the country, right? And they are cratering right now as a for-profit company. They are reliant on the federal government for money, and it's a scary situation. What could potentially happen, and we could end up to pre-Obamacare days. So I mean, I don't know how you feel about. Again, you're in the healthcare system. You deal with insurance. You deal with patients that put off care because they don't have insurance. You deal with patients that get covered a lot more than they should because they have Medicaid. You know, so it's not an easy to figure, you know, and it's also a game of Jenga. When you pull one thing out, a bunch of other things come crashing down around it. And there are industries that have been built around industries, and that means jobs and revenue and tax revenue and all kinds of stuff that has ripple effects. Crypto's bad.
I don't actually deal with insurance that much in my field. I work inpatient, which means like you're acutely dying. That's more of the billing department. But I get what you're saying. Like I see firsthand like what not having insurance does. And as far as like Medicaid covering more than it should, that's actually not true. A lot of times we'll have patients that still need to be there, like medically, but they run out of what's called impact days, which is like a stupid score that they create based off of several factors, like as far as like your mobility and things like that. And they'll get insurance will stop paying, or they'll need to go into a nursing home for, you know, rehabilitation after, you know, being so sick, and it won't be covered. Medicaid doesn't cover as much as you guys think it does, if that makes sense.
Well, it's by state.
And I say this, yeah, well, at least where I am. And I say this respectfully because I was one of the kids on Medicaid. I am one of the, you know, whatever the hell people want to call it. I grew up with Medicaid. I grew up poor. I grew up eating at soup kitchens. I grew up very, very poor. And so Medicaid was a lifeline for me. So it is something I am sensitive about. And I feel like there's a lot of stigma, and that kind of doesn't do well when it's perpetuated that it's being overcovered, because that makes people think that it's waste, when really the only waste is things like sending $500 million to Israel.
Right. 100%. And getting our lawmakers bribed by the crypto industry, which that is something that you told me you have paid attention to, that Sludge has done a really good job of covering just how much the crypto industry has been buying off our lawmakers and Trump. And they've been easing the regulations and restrictions and dropping lawsuits and fraud suits against these crypto companies because they are aligning with what Trump wants to do. Yeah, all this money going to Israel, going back to defense contractors, it's a money laundering scheme. Yes, some of it is. Some of it is going to Israeli tech also, though. Unit 8200 level stuff that then is used to build drones and AI, which is used against the Palestinian people, as well as used against eventually us. And that's my issue.
I actually talked about that, not the Israeli part, but just in general military tech coming back to the U.S. in my new article.
Right. Let's see if I have any other questions here that we're gonna put up. I'm falling behind. That has everything to do with bougie, petty attitudes of dentists and eye doctors. They're a particularly narcissistic and chauvinistic group for some reason. Interesting. I didn't realize that dentists and eye doctors. I thought it was more the system. Are they part of the A.M.A? I don't even know how that works. Yeah, states are very
narcissistic doctors I've worked with are honestly cardiologists. They're cocky fuckers.
Oh, they sure are. Okay, where we go? Okay, I think I'm caught up to chat. I don't see any other questions here. So let's jump back into your article quickly and go to here's what happens next. Okay. So Right. How much does the DoD spend on black markers every year? How much is that?
I have no idea. I was just being a smart ass because they redact everything.
Well,
sure
we
I could find
remember
out.
they had spent like $200 on an ashtray at one point when they audited it, but the excuse was that it was an ashtray that is seaworthy, and therefore when it breaks, it doesn't shatter. It breaks into certain pieces, and that requires XYZ. It's everything has an answer. Right?
You get a plastic one that does the same thing. My parents were smokers. They smell them very cheap.
Something like that. Well, I don't think they actually even allow smoking on the boats anymore like they used to. I don't know how the military works with that. All right. Classified funds flowing to a select handful of military tech firms. I don't think that that's really surprising. I don't know if they're named in this bill exactly where the money's going, or like you said, it's basically putting it into a black hole where then the government or the military will then decide how they want to spend it and put out contracts, either no bid or low bid, and be able to hand those out too. And of course, Palantir, which we've seen grow tremendously over the last couple of years. And I know you've written about Palantir quite a bit already, that they're getting even more money now from the government. So talk a little bit about Palantir.
Their quarter, I don't remember the exact number, but their quarter one, which is just from like till March or April, their quarter one revenue has been like the highest it's ever been. It's the most money they've ever made.
Right?
Like in that short of a time, if that makes sense.
Yep. 100%. So they're an AI company, but they also have the program Foundry, which is their civilian facing platform, as you said. And that is the AI Gotham. All right. So Gotham is the one that police departments and the FBI and CIA, it's the operating system for the intelligence and law enforcement community. Right?
Yeah.
So didn't take long before Foundry began showing up in hospitals, Fortune 500 boardrooms, and government agencies. So what a surprise. They've been, again, getting their stuff all over. Every agency is using them, from Homeland Security. And now they've been tasked, as you wrote about, with mapping total information awareness and being able to connect healthcare data and connect crime data and education and bills and social media. I mean, that's really where Palantir sits at the middle of, right?
Yeah. I mean, they've been using it forever. And it's a lot of people don't realize this. I think we really started using it in the US government under, who was it? I wrote about it. It was not recent. It's been going on for years, since the early 2000s. Sorry.
That's all good.
But yeah, no, we've been using it forever. And it started under, damn it, it's not coming to mind. But you can Google it. It's been going on longer than a lot of people realize. Their name might be popping up now. But the point of the matter is we've actually been using them in our government for government services for some time. So these people have already had access to our private data for some time. They were also used like during COVID to like track like who's on a ventilator, who's, because there was a huge shortage of ventilators because everyone was in respiratory failure during COVID. That was one of the things that they did. They tracked the ventilators, they tracked who had COVID, they had these like registries. And that's just part of it. Like they track everything from health information to license plates numbers to social media accounts to your shopping lists. If if that's public, it's anything that's public is basically they're like they get data from all these different places, and it's become like this one centralized thing. And there's executive orders that he signed earlier in the year that basically puts all the data into one giant data bank that they have access to by encouraging agencies to share information.
Now, I'm not sure if you are familiar with the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, but that was from 2016. They worked with the Mercer family out of the UK. This is a company that profiled everybody effectively and put them into personality profiles where they then targeted them with negative ads and negative posts and specific groups and all kinds of things to try to impact who they were going to vote for, whether that was planting negative stories about Hillary or planting positive stories about Trump or planting stuff to make them mad at the current system. There were different things because they knew from behavioral psychology what the triggers would be that could move somebody from one side to the other, and they were effective, allegedly, at moving people side to side. I
didn't look into it much, but I've heard of it. I know the foundation of what you're talking about. And it's gross. That's a very gross thing. That is very like what in the Hannibal Lecter Black Mirror bullshit. But
well, and I think it's a precursor to what we're seeing now, where they were effectively profiling people, being able to assemble a aggregate profile of here's what people that like XYZ do, and here's how we can potentially get to them, and hitting a target so accurately that it really was able to impact people. That is alleged. I mean, there's a whole Netflix special about it, which I now question some of the people that they interviewed for that, but they also interviewed some of the people that were on the inside that said, yeah, this is exactly what we did. And we were hired by the Trump admin, but also they also did Brexit, and they were effective in swinging a social media campaign to push for the UK to vote for Brexit and to exit their partnership with the EU. Really interesting stuff. And
it sounds like it. Like that. I have unfortunately, I've not spent much time before this looking into this stuff. So everything that I'm learning, everything that I'm sharing with you guys on here is all stuff that I'm learning myself. So I'm still kind of getting caught up. Indy has a much longer history than me. He's also much older than me. But I am learning.
I'm not that much old. Well, I'm older. Okay. Let's just say I'm older. Okay. That's fair. All right. But like you said, you don't have to declare a police state to build one. You just have to budget for it, fund it, normalize it, and let it grow while everyone's looking the other way. And we've already started to see the architecture, like you said, with Alligator Auschwitz. And now there are more. Stephen Miller is pushing to build more of these all over the country. That's not good.
No, it's not.
So what else have you found in here that people should be wary of and paying attention to?
Like in general, or in this, or like what are we speaking?
In this bill, in this HR 4061 that you found the other day about the black budget and the 500 million to Israel and
specifically the bill. Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify. Was are we talking in general? Are we talking about the bill?
Here.
No, you're good. One of the things that I thought was really weird is New Orleans has been systematically targeted as part of what feels like the militarization of our police force, if that makes sense. And I say this because from 2012 to 2019, and this calendar year, there was predictive policing through in
New Orleans,
where they were looking at things and they were essentially, don't correct my accent.
No.
But they would look at your social media, your history, and things like that, and they would predictively police and assume that you were doing something. It almost makes you think of them. If any of you are anime fans, have Psychopaths. There's an anime called Psychopaths, and that is literally the concept. Or there's a Black Mirror episode like it too. But for my people that aren't watching all this stuff like me, essentially they were taking things and they were trying to predict who would commit a crime. It sounds like some crazy futuristic dystopian things, but they were doing it for years, and they did it the way that they went about it was a way that they didn't have to actually announce it or get approval. It was because it was given to them as a gift, if that makes sense. And So that was from 2012 to 2018, but it's been going on before that. In 2010 alone, New Orleans PD actually got millions in military grade gear through something called the 1033 program, which is a program that lets old military hardware, such as guns, grenades, things like that, be passed down to be used on civilians. They were literally using military grade hardware we used overseas to come and use them on our people here. And that's something that happens and we really don't talk about enough. There are whistleblowers and stuff that talk about it, but that's honestly the only sources I could find any kind of information is watchdogs, whistleblower agencies, things like that. It's not really something that's talked about often, but they have been militarizing our police force since the early 2000s, if not before that. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse every year. And the latest and greatest is unfortunately just Palantir, who was allowed to commercialize their software. And that was the way that they could use it on people. So that way they could say like, oh, well, we changed it a little bit.
Right. And this militarization, well, think about the increase in military budgets since 2012 or since Obama took office. And I think we've gone from somewhere around 400 million, okay, in 2009. And I think that our budget is about to hit $1 trillion this year. So you're talking about more than double. And a lot of that equipment had to be retired, but they don't get to use all the toys. Some of it got sent to Ukraine. So some of it got sent to Afghanistan. A lot of people don't realize that Ukraine was a replacement for Afghanistan because they needed a black hole to throw military money down. Now they're wrapping up Ukraine. Now they're throwing that toward Israel, Gaza, as long as that lasts. And they're ramping up toward the war with Iran. They're ramping up toward war with China through Taiwan. They're ramping up to, and by the way, we're still bombing Somalia. We're bombing Yemen right now. Nobody talks about any of this stuff. You do, and I appreciate that you do, and that's why we bring your stories. And also,
I'm just
go ahead.
Like I'm the girl that wants to make the world a better place and is learning just how corrupt and fucked up things are every single day.
Right.
And at least was right about it, talk about it. I may not be 100% educated on things. I try to make sure that I'm always giving accurate information. I always provide links. Like if you notice in my articles, those things that are blue, you click them, they are links, they are sources. You can always check my sources. If I'm saying something, I try to source it. And if I'm ever wrong, just tell me. I'll look into it. I don't like to spread misinformation, but I am a human at the end of the day. So I just ask for anyone that's watching, bear with me. I am new to all this. Like I've always been an activist. I've always cared. But as far as looking at the nitty gritty, that's new.
Well, here's pre-crime policing via Wired. All right. How the LAPD uses data to predict crime. By the way, Jeffrey Bezos is trying to purchase the parent company that owns Wired right now. Great.
I mean, of course he is.
Because Wired is one of the few publications that's been challenging a lot of the tech stuff. That and I think Reclaim the Net, but Wired has been trying to report on, some of the laws and some of the I got you muted. Sorry. Some of the laws that Wired has been trying to keep the Trump administration honest and honestly report on some of the impacts on technology that the Trump laws are going to have. And I'm just finding that, there aren't very many places that understand it and that can explain it explain it to me like I'm 5 level. And,
it's me. I need to have everything explained like I'm 5.
Right.
That's what I tried. Not that bad, but that's what I try to do with my articles. Cause that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to start writing. In my day-to-day as a nurse, I take medical jargon and I make it into easy to understand language for my patients. And I was like, well, shit, if I can make it into a, language that I can understand, then I can help them understand on my platform. And that's why I try to write my articles in a way that's easy to digest, easy to take in, because it's a lot of information. If you don't know half of what's being said at you, it's kind of like in one ear and out the other. Like if I came up to you and I was like, trying to think of something stroke-wise. Let's say someone's having a stroke and I walked up to you, I'm like, yeah, their NIHS score was 8, is worsened to a 10. We're going to do TPA or TNK. I have to check with the physician. Are they on any warfarin? Would you, like, if I went into this, like, whole, like, stroke work with you, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But if I explain to the family, like, hey, so we do a certain test to check how bad a stroke is, and it's went up by 2. So we're going to see about giving a medication or something like that. Like that would make more sense. And that's kind of what I tried to do with my writing, but I had to make it make sense to myself first. It takes a while.
That makes a lot of sense. Marietta, Israel, actually, homeless disabled people being punished in work camps for being poor and homeless. That's another article that you wrote about that I covered on Sunday night, which is about one of the other things that the government has been doing. And Trump has been talking about the sweeps that in getting homeless off the streets. But like you said, it doesn't end with the homeless. That's just where it starts. And
it's how it starts with everything. Like it didn't start with the homeless either. It started with the immigrants. Like it's literally just one population, one vulnerable population after another. Like we talked about you talked about in this article, and we also talked about in your live on Sunday. Nazi Germany didn't start with Jewish people. They started with disabled people. Like it just starts with one vulnerable population, and then it just continues.
Steamrolls, unreal. So yeah, they've used this before. Again, I read this on Sunday night. I don't know if everyone who's here was able to see that, but part of it again. Hey, look, that Palantir guy again. That sweaty Peter Thiel guy. All right, using Gotham and Foundry, designing platforms again to figure out who might be a problem in the future and figure out a way to weed them out. But in the meantime, they'll build the systems that will allow people to find and target homeless. And then you've got the fact that, people are being priced out of housing markets, living out of their cars and having that criminalized, living out of your car, being able to sleep on the street in a tent. We shouldn't even have people doing that. Again, we have a massive inventory of vacant houses in this country. Nobody talks about that either. Massive inventory of vacant houses that are empty. They're vacant.
Purchased by, is it
right?
BlackRock?
Well, there are some owned by BlackRock and Vanguard. They also have had developers build a lot of expensive housing in areas where they may not have needed expensive housing, but
I've seen gentrification is what you're referring to as gentrification. As someone that lives in a poor area and has always lived in a poor area, that is something that I've seen. The house I grew up in is actually a perfect example of this. I don't want to give you guys the address because I don't need anyone trying to stalk me.
No, don't do that.
But I want to show you guys, if I can pull it up on my computer, I'll show you a picture at least to show you the difference and what they did with that house. Give me 1 second. You can keep talking.
No worries. Yeah, Colorado People's News. A big reason they go after the homeless is that they are the ones most affected by the crimes by corporations and the government. They don't want the homeless organizing to protest. Well, sure. That's a problem. They don't want anybody organizing to protest. That's what we've learned. And that's why.
And the issue is not only just a housing issue, it's a mental health issue. Like a lot of the people that are homeless in society, they either have like untreated mental health issues because mental health is a huge thing that is underfunded and we don't have nearly enough support for it. And I'm not saying we need to put them in institutions like this bullshit ass executive order says, but we need more support for the mental health community. There's not enough professionals. There's not enough treatment options. There's not enough stuff out there for them. They'll get, even if they are actively suicidal, they get 3 days in a psych ward and then they're out on the street again. Like these people unfortunately have a lot of barriers, if that makes sense. Like I'm not just talking socioeconomic money, I'm talking mental health. A lot of times there's trauma, there's PTSD, there's something going on there for them to be like that. And they just don't have the systems in place that they need to help them thrive. And the way to do that is to provide these systems, provide more, housing is one, provide more options for education, for healthcare, things like that. Give these people opportunities and give them mental health resources and they will thrive. They will do much better in their lives, but unfortunately, we don't give that to people. And it pisses me off so much because it creates the stigma. And did you know a large percentage of our homeless population are actually like veterans?
Yes.
Who have PTSD or things of that nature to where, they don't really get much once they're out of the army. So it just creates this culture, I guess, my point being, there's better ways to deal with it, and there's reasons that this crisis exists, and we need to deal with the crisis that's leading to this crisis rather than just locking them up.
Yeah. There's also crap. I just lost my train of thought. Where was I going to go with that? Homelessness, mental health stuff. I just I'm blanking. Yeah.
You're good. That's me most of the time.
Big indicator of more economic abuse to come is more spending on mental health. I see that, but what I also see is them spending more money on prisons, private prisons, Geo Group,
Bingo,
and Core Civic, but not just those companies. And again, we talked about this a few weeks ago, which is all of the side businesses, the ancillary businesses, the feeder businesses that service the private prison industry that are also profiting the people who are doing transport flights. Go ahead.
I have a list. I have to send it to you. I have a list. It's a Google Maps list that shows all of the subcontractors for Geo Group and for ICE. I will get it to you. I have it on my computer. I've been wanting to use it to write a story, and I just haven't gotten to it. I have a fucking list.
It's like, I'm guessing like Cintas uniforms, for example, and, certain coffee companies and their airline companies, like I said, private airline companies that might be transporting prisoners from facility to facility on ICE contracts. There are a bunch, there are meal services companies like A.M.A or whatever that might have personnel. I don't know. You've got that list, but yes, certainly there are larger organizations and larger companies that are benefiting from the private prison industry. What's that?
So Omni-Air, which actually used to be co-owned by Bezos. I don't think he has a share in it anymore, but Omni-Air was one of the ones that was taking people to third countries and transporting people for immigration. There's a couple of them. Omni-Air is one. They also use like military crafts, like actual military, like helicopters, which costs an insane amount of money, for one. And for two, that's like, what the fuck? Why? That's overkill. But Omni-Air is one of the private contractors, is my point. That's the one that I could think of off the top of my head because I remember Bezos used to own part of it. Thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Bad Wolf. Yeah, she is. She's good. She's good peeps. She's a good woman. Yeah, extra houses unlocked. Thank you, Fred. That was the thing, is that they're priced out of the market. And if there were some kind of regulated housing market to say, we've got X number of low-income people and we need to figure out a way to house them, and look at the experiments like Norway that gives people an apartment and a place to live and keeps them off the street, but doesn't treat them like prisoners or criminals. And a lot of them cycle back through into society. And I don't know if our private industry wants to even cycle these people back into society, because you were talking about like how much these companies are getting per bed from the federal government, and that it's really become like an imprisonment kind of society, that things have kind of shifted and people haven't noticed, right?
Yeah, honestly. But I mean, if you create like capitalism in private prisons, is kind of bound to happen. Like, it's literally a for-profit organization, and of course, they're gonna lock people up. Sorry, that subject pisses me off.
Yeah, they create the conditions that allow for more people to be locked up because they profit from each person who locks up. So they lobby more lawmakers to create more draconian laws that allows people to be locked up. So they profit when more people come into their systems by being locked up.
Which is why the Geo Group and Core Civic lobbied for Donald Trump, because they knew that they had a lot of money coming for the immigration stuff. And I have a feeling that they're going to be the people that are hosting the institutions that will hold the homeless and the people that get locked up because they say that they have to be, which, by the way, that bill is ambiguous enough that anyone can be locked up. But they were the biggest lobbyers for Trump, and that's because they knew what was coming if he won. And they already have treatment centers and residential centers and halfway homes, both companies, as it exists. Do you think they're not going to build on that? Like I could 100% see them benefiting from this.
But I saw, you know what? I saw that a Harris administration was going to do the same thing. They were also getting bought off by Core Civic and Geo Group. Harris was known for locking people up for truancy, for their kids not going to school. She had a horrible record, and she was known to be a cop and to align with cops. And Democrats have never met a cop they didn't want to fund in the last 5 years. That partly was, in my opinion, brought on by January 6th. And the way that they felt about Capitol Police that personally saved them, they felt like, through that operation. And look, I always say that just because it's a PSYOP doesn't mean that nobody gets hurt. People do get hurt. People get prosecuted. Crazy shit happens during a PSYOP, things that you wouldn't normally expect. I still believe that January 6th in general was a PSYOP, partially designed to traumatize Congress into ending the entire defund the police movement. Out of the summer of George Floyd, where there was a lot of talk of restructuring or refunding or reallocating police budgets more towards civil stuff and taking a ton of money away from the police departments to put it to the services that could actually benefit from it.
Okay. So remember I talked about showing you like the difference in my house when I was living there when I was a kid versus now because of gentrification. We talked about that a couple minutes ago. It took me a while, but I've got the pictures up. Are you ready?
Go.
I have grown very poor. I've told you guys this. This is the home that I grew up in.
Okay.
It is not. Okay. And they remodeled it right here.
Well,
okay. And then it was sold for $345,000.
Yep.
Which is insane because that area is bad. That is not a good area. That is not a safe area. There are needles in the alleyways. That is not safe, but they are doing this to the houses out there so that they can move in a richer population. And they're taking the people that already lived in the area out rather than just focusing on building on that community and building that community up. They're just, basically kicking them out for a new population, which is crazy to me.
Well, and that's just one area. Then you talk about East Palestine, for example. So in East Palestine, that's another way for them to get rid of people in an area is to have a disaster that destroys an area, devalues the entire population and all of the land and your houses and everything that you've worked your life for. You had no way of knowing that was going to happen. And the government basically has turned around and given nothing. They don't hold Norfolk Southern, the train company that had the derailment and spilled toxic chemicals all over East Palestine, Ohio. They haven't held them accountable at all. There have been small lawsuit payouts so far, but not nearly adequate enough for the public that was affected. There really has been no accountability that it looks like, and there may not ever be. And we're not just seeing this in East Palestine, Ohio, but more insidious is Lahaina. There were a lot of people that seemed to feel that it could have been coordinated, it could have been orchestrated, it could have not necessarily been a total natural disaster, and that resulted in a tremendous amount of loss of life and in the destruction of that town, which just so happened to be in an area where all the wealthy people wanted to have cleared out. It just so happens to be in areas like that. I also look back to the wildfires of California earlier this year, all right, and how it hit the Malibu coast, and the strategic area that ended up burning down there is exactly where they want to build for the Olympics. And they needed to do a whole bunch of things that there's no way with all the structures and everything in place that they would have been able to do. Right?
I mean, plausible, I guess, that people could be setting fires to benefit the rich. I honestly don't have enough background information on this to make a comment on it, but it's plausible.
Well, I just see a lot of ways of squeezing people out of an area to price them out of their own homes, even when they thought they were good, even when they were continuing to make money. And all of a sudden, a disaster like that displaces thousands of people from an area, and now they're scattered, and the area never quite comes back the way it was. And we saw this after Hurricane Helene as well. I've seen this a lot in Tennessee and North Carolina, in even, I think, northern Georgia got affected by that. And nobody really talks about that still at this point. But there are people still living in hotels from all that. And that changes. I mean, what's their house worth now? You know, again, $750 for the government, from the government, maybe, if you jump through hoops and you don't have a GoFundMe and you can qualify for all this stuff. Insurance wasn't covering it because it was a force majeure. People lost everything.